Hey folks, welcome to Real Movies Fake History, our special review show, a bonus, where we critique a movie that's making waves in the culture right now. Does it deserve to win an Oscar? Or does it deserve a good thrashing? Let's find out. So the movie in question is, what's a special one? It's The Pope's Exorcist.
The other 2%. This is something that has confounded all of science and all of medicine for a very long time. I call it evil.
And everyone be warned, there's going to be a few spoilers.
Lots of spoilers, be prepared.
But I want to say, Mel, I don't think you can spoil this movie. You know why you can't spoil it? Because you've seen this movie already 100 times before. Because it's like every other Exorcist movie, except this one's got Russell Crowe in it. And you know what? I've got to say, seeing another Exorcist movie about another child that's possessed, the fact, though, that Russell Crowe's in it makes me go, I'm intrigued.
Well, that's why we went and saw it.
And I showed Mel the trailer, and immediately Mel was like, I think we'll go see this one. So we did go see it together. I'm not going to lie, it was pretty easy to get tickets to go see it. It was not a packed theatre.
It definitely wasn't a packed theatre, but it was fun.
It's not too bad, but let's get into it. So,
okay.
Right, Russell Crowe, he plays Father Gabriele Amorth. He's a priest, Mel, and he's a priest that can do things that no other priest could do. He's a special priest. And I feel like Russell Crowe's playing kind of the James Bond of exorcists, you know?
It feels like that, but in a kind of geeky way. So he's got his kit and he's got his little...
He's got his case full of, I don't even know what's in the case, but
it's some really special metal.
It's like a doctor's thing,
There's holy water, which a priest always needs in their arsenal. And he needs his little book that has prayer and the instructions and advice. Like, you got to have your research.
Yes, and listen, I thought this was good because the opening scene of the movie, Mel, you have to show the audience how good he is at what he does. You know what I mean? It's like Bond. You know, Bond starts off with a giant action scene and you're like, geez, Bond is good.
He is, yeah.
Your kid is so good at that stuff. No wonder he's James Bond. And so Father Amorth goes in and there's some person possessed on the bed. I can't remember who it is. And he's going, right, I've got all my equipment. You know how exorcism is. You got to read the Bible and you got to pray a lot. No. He just yells at the kid like, possess this pig! Possess the pig!
But he does that because he knows the kid is not possessed by a demon.
But the movie...
No, he knows. He absolutely knows. And he says that to someone afterwards. He says sometimes people need a bit of drama.
Which, yes.
So for whatever was going on, and this young man had mental health issues, and as part of the real life Father Amorth, most of them were all referred to mental health psychologists, psychiatrists, mental hospitals, etc.
Right.
So part of this was a bit of a stunt to make the young man feel like he's being heard and listened to.
The movie rips off, as every possession movie does, rips off William Friedkin's The Exorcist from 1973.
Yeah, the classic.
Total classic. And that film, very much gets into that in a very interesting way because you're going... it's a psychological thing, and there's that tension between, is it a psychological thing, which all of us rationally are saying must be, to the whole kind of supernatural thing where the film goes, maybe it's like crazy devil
demon,
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And so, okay, I get it. So, but then he shoots the pig and, psychologically...
Well, the idea that's how you kill the demon because the demon is now possessing the pig.
Well, yes.
And so in this young man's mind, he feels like the demon can't come back.
Yes, that poor pig. But there we go. I mean, this is the first thing you see Russell Crowe do is like have a pig be shot.
And he makes it look cool.
He does a lot of yelling, it's not a lot of praying.
Yeah, you're sucked in.
He's a real action-packed guy, he just walks in there, starts shouting and stuff.
But before he does that, he makes the little sister pray in another room so she's not traumatized by the situation.
And he has that father, he's like Father Christmas, he's like going, listen, could you do me a favor? Little girl, little sweet girl.
He's really kind to her.
He is. I have to say, Russell Crowe... Why is it interesting? The only reason the same rehearsed plot of Possession is interesting is because Russell Crowe essentially plays the priest as a rock star.
Yeah.
He's walking about, he's drinking, he's constantly swishing whiskey, going like, oh, it's a tough racket, this Exorcist.
He's got a Ferrari scooter.
Oh, yeah. Is it a Vespa or Ferrari?
I don't know, but it's got a Ferrari sticker on it.
Yeah, and he's very Italian, Mel. I don't know if you know
And he is an
this.
Italian priest.
He's very Italian. Of course, if you were going to cast... someone who's going to play a small Italian priest, you couldn't do worse than cast Aussie Russell Crowe,
Hey, he has an excellent Italian accent and speaks Italian through a fair bit of the movie.
It's a very Italian accent. I think he's about one spaghetti carbonara away from Super Mario. Very, very, very
and
Italian.
You have to remember, Russell is a method actor.
Is he?
When he commits to stuff, he commits.
He walks about set going, what are you talking about? Doing the Exorcist movie.
That's not what it means to be a method actor. It means in the scene he's not pretending. He believes it.
I get the impression, Mel, Russell Crowe doesn't take the movie that seriously.
But you could tell he's having the time of his life.
I think that's why it's fun. I think most Exorcist movies are so horror-based that they kind of get bogged down in here's a jump scare, and oh, wow, it's so serious, and geez, man, hell's out there. I mean, there's bad things about it. And then Russell Crowe will just kind of swig a bit of whiskey and he'd be like, hey. He just knows when to do a double entendre. Very similar to Bond.
It is very similar to Bond, because I would say this is not really a horror movie.
Yes, I see where you're going.
It's not there to try and make you jump 20 times.
Well, I was watching you very carefully in the movie not because the movie...
I'm a jumper.
Well, that's exactly right. I was going I feel like there's a 2-jump rule where to be a horror movie, you got to make Mel jump twice.
And if I can scream in the cinema, which I have done once before, then it's successful.
Well, then it's a 5-star horror movie. And I was watching Mel very carefully, and you didn't jump at all.
I didn't.
So I think it was
It's not horror.
So I think for fans out there that are going, how scary is it? Where does it sit in the scarometer? I mean, it's very tame, I think.
I think it's incredibly tame.
Yeah. And so what you're left with is you're kind of just taking pleasure at I wonder what they're going to do to amp this up in the next scene.
And they do a lot to amp it up, but it's just different.
Yeah. I mean, how do you amp up? Look, I've seen
the house is cool. So most of the movie is set in a rural kind of manor castle type thing.
In Spain. Aye.
And it's cool.
It does look cool. I mean, I hate to tell you though, if you out there, listener, are worried about being possessed by a demon, my first advice is probably don't move into a giant haunted castle somewhere rural Spain. Because the thing about this family is that they move into this house and you're going, I wonder what kind of house it's like. And then you see inside of it and it's this cavernous house with giant caves and no lights anywhere. And a giant stained glass window. And I'm like, geez, if you were to pick
energy,
somewhere,
no.
If somebody's going to get possessed somewhere, it's got to be in this place. It's a very cheesy, locale, I thought,
But I think for me, you have to leave logic at the door and understand.
You certainly do.
And understand that there are certain expectations in this world, and one of them is a cool house/castle.
That is very, very true. It is super haunted.
It becomes a character in the movie.
I think if I think back, right, I mean, I have to compare it to the original Exorcist. The reason the original Exorcist is so scary is because it happens in such an ordinary domesticated house. I mean, that house is worth about $1 billion now, but it's a Georgetown house, and it gives you this impression that this shit could happen anywhere. You're like, God, if it happens in Georgetown, I mean, it could happen in any suburb, in any place in the world. But then you look at this movie and you go, you moved your family to a haunted house in Spain.
But remember, she didn't know it was haunted when they moved there. Her
Yeah.
husband had inherited it.
Okay.
He had passed away. They were apparently broke. So the idea was to do some house flipping, spend a small fortune. Don't ask me where they got the money from.
I love
to
it.
do it up, sell it, and leave.
So the family moves in, and as Mel said, one of the funniest scenes is we were sitting watching this going, now how's this play out? And the mother's going, listen, kids, you know we're broke. We don't have any money. And I'm sitting there going,
20 construction
you
workers
have
on site.
yeah, you're like building a giant house in the middle of Spain. Why don't you sell the giant mansion?
I said you had to leave logic at the door.
You really do. I mean, you really do.
And if you do, you will enjoy it.
And of course, this lovely woman has 2 children, a young son and a teenage daughter. And of course, the teenage daughter, Mel, fits lovely into the archetype of the sulky teenager that listens to heavy metal and just doesn't do anything her mother says and is thoroughly annoyed at the fact that she has had her whole life moved from America, where all her friends would be and her high school friends would be. The prom, she'll miss that. And she's been moved where? to the middle of nowhere in a giant haunted house in Spain.
Not only that, her brother hasn't been speaking for a year.
That's right, he's a mute. Well, he's not a
No,
mute.
he's not a mute.
But
Since the
he just
trauma
doesn't
of his
talk.
father's death, he has stopped talking.
So his trauma's in there.
Yeah.
But I always love when the teenage daughter's like irritated, like, the mother's like, why can't you just be a nice daughter? And the she's just like irritated and doesn't speak to her. And I'm like, I understand.
I'd be irritated too. This is a sucky deal.
Yeah, like you've moved me to the middle of nowhere in a different country.
Where are the other local Spanish kids that I can be friends with? What's that? Nowhere, because we're in the middle of nowhere.
I don't speak Spanish,
She could learn Spanish. Like that's...
I don't know.
You can overcome that problem. But you need friends to be sort of nearby for them to have friendships.
Anyway, of course you know how this works, though. It's a possession movie. The younger son, he starts acting a bit weird. Things aren't going so well, and we're going, no, he's possessed. There's something dodgy going on, because this house that they're in is creaking and doing weird stuff, and there's a weird thing happening in the basement.
Gas explosion.
There's a gas explosion. I mean, there's some dodgy shit going on, right? And so, of course, what happens is, he does start manifesting, demonic things, and his teeth get terribly bad. That's the thing about being possessed by a demon, Mel. Your skin gets really bad, and your teeth get you never get more beautiful. You always get more ugly.
Which has never made any sense to me, because I would have thought demons are all meant to be about vanity.
Right.
I would have thought your looks should increase.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's why I don't want to get possessed, because I'm very sensitive about my skin. I don't think it would. My skin's terribly dry in winter, and I just don't think it would work for me. Basically, the young boy turns into a little tiny goblin.
He looks gaunt. He looks horrible.
Yeah, hasn't slept for a year. Looks like he's,
He looks malnourished.
Yeah, he looks like he's done the whole weekend of Coachella with no sleep. He's not looking great. And so, Mel, they call in a Spanish priest, I believe, if I'm...
The local priest, because
Yeah.
the local priest is there to welcome them to the house, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
And they have to call him back because the boy is taken to hospital. They do all the medical tests, and they're like, we can find nothing wrong with him.
The movie's very short. Well, not
The
very...
movie is tight.
It's tight is probably the way to put it. And
There's
so,
no padding.
So when you're seeing a scene like the hospital scene, and you've seen it a million times before, it is tight. It's like...
Yeah, it's like 40 seconds, as it should be, because the hospital scene doesn't matter. It just needs to tick the box.
Well, that's right.
Science has failed. We need to bring in the priest.
Which is my favorite part, because it's like science has got 40 seconds, and then they're like, we don't know what to do. Gee, you better call the best priest in the business, and that's essentially what happens. It takes so long in the original Exorcist for them to get to the point where they go, I think the priest is the only thing left.
And in real life, sometimes it can take months or years to bring in a priest.
But
But we love a timeline compression.
Yes. And
It's one of our favorite things. And this is a perfect example about why timeline compressions are excellent.
Well, that's right. This is like a trailer for, the original Exorcist. It's so compressed. And, I love the doctors. The doctors are like, geez, science just can't explain this. There's nothing physically wrong with your son. I would call the Pope's exorcist. And that's what they do.
No, they don't say that. Basically, they say, here are some drugs if you need to, sedate him.
Yeah, and he'll be fine. You know what? It's stress. It's just stress. You don't understand. His teeth are like rotting. It's like, no, it's stress. No, his skin, his face is like a melted candle. And no, it's stress.
The thing is, that is beside the point.
Right.
And remember, we're leaving logic at the door.
I'm trying my best, Mel.
You're really struggling, aren't you?
Really trying. It's there we go. When you see things floating around the room and you're thrown physically into like a wardrobe, you're like, no. This is not the flu. No, I don't think we're
And
going to...
my normal seminary training did not cover this.
Well, that's right, and of course, there's only one thing to do. We got to call not just any exorcist, because let me tell you, just a normal guy off the street that does a few prayers, it's not going to work. We're not going to cut it. We need to call the big guns. We're going straight to the top here, people, right? Get the Pope on the blower, because we're getting his exorcist right here in Spain. And the best part of this, Mel, is that Father Amorth manages, I don't know how he does this, because he's not a fit man. He looks like he's just won a hot dog eating competition. He manages to ride his Vespa scooter all the way from the Vatican, Rome, to Spain. And I don't mean Madrid, I mean somewhere way out there. And he goes all the way through mainland Europe to get there, and it just cuts from him on the Vespa in Rome into Spain.
But isn't that good? Timeline compression.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him go to 10 cafes, taking a shower, doing what he does. That's boring.
I was in the cinema and I seen the shot on Spain on the scooter. I was like, come on.
But
you know?
why not?
But anyway, I felt the movie was having a lot of fun, and I was like, I'm totally with this. It's silly. It's silly. That's okay. I'm good with silly, you know? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this haunted house, you know, maybe there's nothing to this house. Maybe the house itself is not haunted. You'd be wrong. The whole house is built, and you're not going to believe this, it's built on like a giant graveyard or
No, it's a dungeon.
some sort of thing.
It's really cool, and the set looks amazing. So basically, Russell Crowe discovers what looks like the top of a well, and he uses his Vespa to pull the lid off
Yeah, that's right.
with a rope. It's brilliant.
Which is so good. Yeah.
And then the camera comes up to the top, and what you see is all these skulls around it.
It's a cool set.
It's a really cool shot. And then you have one of the coolest explosions in the movie. He lights up a sheet of paper, drops it down, and then we have this ginormous gas explosion that I swear is 20 meters in the air.
And I heard Mel, that went off, and Mel audibly went, wow.
It was cool.
Wow. You know, that was pretty good.
Because it was so unnecessary and over the top, but I was like, in this movie world, that works.
It's predictable where this is leading. I'll tell you why it's predictable, because what actually happens is that somehow the story manages to ultimately absolve the entire Catholic Church of the Spanish Inquisition, which I thought was very, very funny.
It was a great line.
It was pure Catholic propaganda at its finest.
Insane.
I mean, they just go, oh, yeah, you know, the whole Spanish Inquisition. Remember all that stuff we did? Yeah. Turns out it was the devil that did that.
Yeah, the demons possessed a bunch of priests, which is why it went so crazy.
I mean, no, I heard that and I thought, wow, this movie has some balls. I mean,
This movie has a lot of balls.
boy, to, you know, just absolve all that. You know,
In the moment, it feels a little bit like National Treasure.
it does. I mean, and the fact that you said, you're right, there's a dungeon underneath and you're
Big set. Like, it's way bigger than it should be for the size of that house.
oh, 100%. And you're going into the well
And then there's a random pool of water.
yeah, it's very setty. You know, it's very
It's
like,
a complete set where the Virgin Mary just comes up from the water,
yeah.
which is very cool.
It's all getting to the point where we have to have an exorcism, right? And the funniest part about exorcist movies is that they're ultimately leading to a conclusion where you're reading something out at someone tied to a bed, which is not the most exciting thing in the entire world. But they really try hard to make it exciting because, boy, when they do an exorcism, it's like someone else in another room is being attacked. People are being thrown about. There's cups flying about. I mean, I will say this, for a movie that's showing me scenes that I've seen many times before, and even the fact that it's not even that scary, it's actually quite enjoyable minute to minute.
It's very enjoyable to watch. But I think part of the reason why that scene works is because Russell Crowe makes a deal with the demon saying, you don't hurt them and you can have me.
It's exactly what happens at the end of the first Exorcist movie.
I didn't say it was going to be original.
It's the exact same thing. But of course, you know, Russell Crowe being possessed Russell Crowe is very funny. It's just
great to watch.
Gets a bit of mascara on and he's looking a bit dark and emo. But he's also kind of fighting inside Mel because he's a man. He's so powerful and he's such a strong...
His faith in God.
That's right. He's such a strong faith that almost the demon can't even totally possess him. And one of my favourite parts, of course, is when you have an epic conclusion, you think, how do I really spice this up? And my favourite go-to as a writer is having a naked woman appear covered in blood who explodes.
For no reason.
For no reason whatsoever. And I thought, this is great. They're just literally going, God, maybe someone will get bored. We need a naked woman here.
So there were times where it did feel like a male fantasy.
Oh, 100%. And I want to know from you, like, you know, gender-wise, where you're sitting on this, you know?
So I think when we were in the cinema, I reckon there was one other woman in the room.
Yeah,
it was all men.
It was a lot of men. It's going to be that.
When you go to a James Bond movie, there are women everywhere.
I guess you're right. That is an interesting point.
Like, there were a number of decisions in this movie that made no sense, but it was clearly done with the intention for a male audience. So, example number one, the mother hears a noise and walks out of her bedroom randomly in her undies and a singlet.
Of course.
It's just like, what?
But I also was constantly watching people do this in their pajamas and going like, it would be so cold in that house.
Well, that's it. So the priests look like they're all wearing 4 layers. So the men are wearing 4 layers.
I think Russell Crowe's wearing 50 layers.
But the teenage girl is in like the tiniest pair of shorts ever and a tiny t-shirt. Again, you're like, really?
Yeah, I could see that.
And then you've got Naked Woman, and then you've got Naked Woman with blood. Like, there's just a lot of things where you're just like,
Yeah, let's. We're worried about boredom here. Let's. We know our audience.
The women have got to be 10s.
Yes.
And the lead men's, like, I love Russell, but he is not a 10 in this, looks-wise.
I'm not going to lie, Mel.
With that belly.
No, he's not a 10. It is an interesting, but all the cliches are here. I mean, it's riddle, they're ticking boxes of this genre. So I can't say that this stands out really that much amongst a very, very popular genre of other horror movies. And you know what? As Mel said, it's not even that scary. But there's a campiness here.
It's very camp and it's fun. Like, I laughed quite a few times in this movie.
I did. I laughed that. So this movie's based on the real Gabriele Amorth.
That's right.
Who wrote a number of books about his...
It's like 10 books.
Like something like that.
I think there's 2 biographies.
Something like that. And I think the film is based on 2 of his books. But what's so funny is that, this film at times is kind of an advertisement for books, which I find hilarious because Russell Crowe literally stops the plot multiple times and goes, my books are pretty good. You should read those books. I actually think there's a legend at the end of the movie that literally says, the books are good. Go to a bookstore and buy these books. And you're like, God, this movie is just blatantly an advertisement for stuff. I'm nitpicking, but I thought that was very funny. And again, I'm not saying it's supposed to be funny because I don't think it is, but it's campy.
I thought it was meant to be funny.
I thought it's just campy. It's very campy. The Pope spends 60% of the movie in a church alone at night. And I'm going like, I don't think the Pope's allowed to do that.
Oh, as in you think he needs security?
I would say he would need a lot. Yeah, I mean, he's got an entourage.
It's his private chapel.
I would say the Pope is like, it's like Jay-Z going home. It's like he's got a lot of people.
This is his home. He lives in the Vatican.
I think during the movie I said to you, I said, God, the Pope's spending a lot of time in church. And then Mel turned around and she said, that's what the Pope does. He's
meant to go to church and pray.
He's meant to go to church. But
he's the Bishop of Rome. He's the head of like 1 billion Catholics.
Oh my God, it's so funny. And by the end of the movie, essentially the Vatican, I didn't know this, Mel, the Vatican is essentially MI5.
And that little scene was cool.
I mean, it's
because they had random artifacts that were like mutilated.
I mean, they're basically they're
going to war against the demons.
I know, it's like the CIA. It's like they got big screens. They got the cameras everywhere, and they're going, "We got a big problem here, Father.
We go to war against the demons."
Because
bring on the sequel.
Well, that's why I love the ending is them going, "You just did one, but there's hundreds out there," and you're like, "Okay, there's hundreds of them," and it's turning into a war against demons, which I feel like is fun in a very silly way. And I can't deny it. It was short. It went very quick. And if anything, Russell Crowe really keeps it together because he's, as you said, he's having so much fun and he seems to get the camp in this movie that he's willing to channel it wholly while all the other actors around him, really serious actors, acting very serious. They're not that good. I think you're right. I think
he's of a different caliber.
Yeah. I don't like to pick on actors, but I've got to say, some of the acting leaves a lot to be desired.
It's not good.
It's not great. But good on you, Crowe. There's a reason he was cast, because even when he's grumpy and rotund.
He wanted to be in this movie.
Because
he wanted to play a priest. He wanted to do this stuff. Like, you can tell.
I think he just probably thought the title was good too. I mean, it's a great title.
It's an excellent title.
Because if you're looking at, the water carrier and the river runner and stuff, and then you go the Pope's Exorcist. Oh wow, that sounds like one for me.
It's a name you remember.
Yeah, exactly. So where do I stand on it? I think it's a cliched-ridden plot. You've seen it many times before, and let me tell you, if you're going to pick something, you might as well go watch The Exorcist again because it is the superior version of this movie. But there's a lot of camp, there's a lot of fun, and there's just enough in there for squeeze. I was on the fence. Out of 5, I was going to give it 2. And then I had a long think about it, and I feel like I don't want to give a 0.5 because I feel that's unfair. So I'm going to give it 3 because it's a kind 3 because I had fun and it's short.
And we're not comparing it to, say, a Titanic or an A-list movie. Like, I think it's unfair to compare these movies of different quality. You've got to say a movie within this genre
Yes. I agree.
How good do we think it is?
Yes, I feel it's fair to compare it to the movies it's ripping off.
Yes, agreed. I would also give it a 3.
Very good.
Where I think a lot of people would have fun is high school sleepovers. Get some popcorn, get your sleeping bags out. You'd have a lot of fun.
When they make The Pope's Exorcist 2, and if Russell Crowe is in it,
Oh, we'll go.
I'm going to go see it.
Absolutely.
But I tell you, Mel,
If he's not, it's not happening.
exactly right. I hate to tell you. So that's why you need to see it. So very good. So there's 3 stars from both of us. Very good, Mel.
Excellent.
So that may be worth your time. So thank you, everyone. That was our review show. A little bit of a new format for us. If you didn't enjoy the format, though, please let us know. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and do all those fun things because it does help us on our social media channels and beyond. And also, our next episode is going to be coming up very soon. If you like, though, you can email us. So email us at realmoviesfakehistory@gmail.com. So if you've got a question or a comment or even a suggestion,
We love getting movie suggestions.
absolutely
We really do. It's really helpful.
shoot it through to us and that'll be good. Otherwise, we will catch you on the next one.